Hi guys, today let's talk about hardy geraniums and what a great powerhouse perennial they can be in your cottage garden, and a few tips and tricks to help get the best out of them. So let's talk hardy geraniums. Yeah, hardy geraniums are the true geraniums, whereas these, I'll pick up this big pot. These are actually pelargoniums, but they've gotten the name geraniums. But hardy geraniums are the true geraniums that you can grow, and they are perennial in a wide range of zones, depending on the variety. So you'd have to look it up, like I have some particular favorites in my garden. And if, like Roseanne, you can look up, Google Roseanne hardy geranium, and it will tell you the zone it's in. So, but again, they are hardy in a wide range of zones. I am in zone 8B in the mountains of Northern California. I have a relatively short growing season because I do live in the mountains, and we have some particularly long winters. This next winter, they say, could be particularly hairy with heavy, wet snow. I'm hoping it'll be higher up. So I am going to take a few cuttings of this golden sage while we talk. I hope you don't mind. I know some people don't like that when you do two things at once. So I'm just going to remove the leaves, take the cuttings, and put them in here. This is not a how-to, so I'm not going to tell you how I do it, but I have lots of cutting videos, and yeah, you can go there. So anyways, number one on our hardy geranium hint, tip, trick list. So you want to choose the right one. Now, what does that mean? Well, as I said before, they can range as far as zone, being hardy in, and so you want to, of course, pick one that would be hardy in your zone. But also there's many other factors, like the type of area you want to put it in, because different hardy geranium varieties grow to different sizes. They could be stay very compact, or they could get quite large unless you keep them chopped back. So that is a factor there. And some of the cultivars, they have their own strengths, so you want to put the right one in the right place for the right reasons. Now, some of my favorites are Roseanne. That one is a prolific bloomer, like from the beginning of the season clear through to fall. And then I have my Elkie, which stays a bit shorter and more compact, and it does bloom through the season if I keep it dead-headed. Johnson's Blue. Johnson's Blue was one of the very first ones I got, that, and there's one that just had the plain name of Bloody Cranesbill, but that's actually just a name, a generality name, and not a named variety, so I don't actually know what it is. That, yeah, for a long time it didn't do much, and then all of a sudden it took off. So that one has got some pretty magenta flowers. I have Tiny Monster. Tiny Monster, the name suits it. It can really get going, fill in, take over. Just trim it back. I have, let's see, what other ones do I have? Johnson's Blue, Tiny Monster. I'm trying to think of the ones I have. Well, I'll think of the others later. I've tried Ballerina, but I lost it, and I would like to try that one again. Patricia. I also had one called Dragon's Blood or Dragon's Eye, something like that. That was really pretty, and I lost it too, but it was in the wrong bad area. But those are just some of the name varieties. There are hundreds. I didn't know how many there were until I was looking up information on this subject to share. So I gotta keep going here. Okay, so buy the right hardy geranium for the right reasons. And not just because of the color, because you have to really look at its attributes. So you want to plant them. Number two, plant them in the right location. So a lot of them need like 4 to 6 hours of sun a day. But if you live in a hotter area, then maybe they would do better in a little bit of afternoon shade. Now, I have read, but I haven't really tested that they can bloom well in bright shade. So meaning bright shade, meaning it's not deep dark underneath a tree, but I would assume bright shade would include, like I have mine growing under other plants like roses and other perennials, so they get shaded a little bit. And so that might be what that means. But if you got a spot, lots of sun, it does help them to grow the best without getting too hot. So this golden sage is just gorgeous. Okay, I can't seem to keep focused, so I'm going to just go ahead and just work on the video. So right place. You want to plant them in the right place for them. Also, you know, anytime you get a plant, usually there'll be instructions, or you can Google it and you'll get a lot of information. Just make sure that you're getting true information and not just somebody's wives' tale. There's a lot of garden wives' tale out there, and yeah, it really doesn't fit, but it's been passed along for years and years, and people actually believe it. So just be careful and make sure you test your sources, is all I will say. And don't always just believe me. You can go check out things for yourself and make sure that they're accurate. Number 3, just like most perennials, they like well-drained soil. They are not too particular about the pH, but nothing likes sitting in soggy, heavy, claggy soil. Well, there are plants like water plants that will, but this is not one of them. This is a perennial, well-drained soil. It doesn't have to be particularly rich. If you need to, before you plant any really perennial, you can improve your soil with adding compost and amendments. Compost is an amendment, but you know what I mean. And then mix it in well in that area. And then if you don't have ground covers, which I use a lot of ground covers in place of mulch, they help keep the soil healthy, but then put down some mulch. Wood chip mulch is excellent for breaking down and improving your soil over time. So 3-4 inches in an area to keep the weeds out, but also to keep the soil healthy and those fungi that you want in there. They really do well with wood chip mulch. I get mine in bulk from a local supply, and we get a pickup load and then we spread it all over. And they get it from local arborists and tree fallers and whatever, and have it in a big huge pile and load it onto our truck with a tractor. But you could also use bagged from your local Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware we have up here. I just put out some of the organic, Miracle Grow organic mulch. It's been OMRI rated, and I put it out in my vegetable garden area in the pathway, and it's very nice. So that is a really good one to try. I've been impressed with what's in the bag. And up here, it was $5.99 for 2 cubic feet or a foot and a half, something like that. So not too bad, but I can get a whole truckload for $35, and that goes a long ways. So if you can, try to go bulk to save money. So 4, water consistently while they're getting established. Once they're established, they're moderately drought resistant. Drought resistant does not ever mean with any perennial that they like going completely dry. They like consistent moisture. They just don't like being waterlogged. And drought resistant means if you have a heavy drought and you can't water for whatever reason, they will stay alive, but it doesn't mean they will thrive and produce as well as many flowers. So you do want to give them consistent moisture. And that's pretty easy to do if you have like, an irrigation system, or I like a moisture meter for either my containers or in ground. I can go and poke the probe in the ground and it'll tell you a little bit further down than you poke a finger. Poking a finger in isn't that accurate because you could have a waterlogged down by the roots and the upper inch or 2 will be dry. And you'll think, oh, it needs more water, because that's often touted as the way to measure. And it really isn't that accurate. But a moisture meter will tell you how moist it is down closer to the roots and then give you a better reading. So that's just the way I do it, and it's been very successful. And you don't have to go around and get your fingernail dirty from sticking your finger in the soil. 5, do not over-fertilize. Hardy geraniums are one of those plants that don't do well with too much fertilization. Now, well-amended soil is not the same as adding fertilizers. Fertilizers can create a problem in making the growth too lush, then it'll get too tall, it'll be floppy from weak stems and flop over, and therefore then you have to shave it back before you get flowers. So don't be fertilizing. If you use compost and you mulch well, you probably don't need to fertilize at all, which will save you a lot of money. 6, deadhead spent flowers. Yeah, I'm going to share with you a video. Hopefully it turned out. It might be a little jiggly, and I'm sorry. I was testing a new setup with a new camera, but just bear with me. And if you deadhead regularly when the blooms are dying down, then you will get rebloom regularly through the summer on most varieties. Some rebloom more than others. I have one called Biokovo, makes a great ground cover, and it has these pretty pink flowers. It has one big flush of bloom in late spring, early summer, and then it doesn't seem to do anything the rest of the year, the rest of the summer. Creates a nice mound. It does choke out weeds, and then that alone is pretty. But I bought it for the flowers, and it is reputed to bloom throughout the summer, and so far it hasn't done that for me. But all my others, if I deadhead them, they will continue to bloom most of the summer. My most profound bloomer is Roseanne. So if you want one that for sure blooms through the summer, invest in a rose. Number 7, give them a midsummer hard chop back. And this can do many things. It can keep them more compact. And I share a video with you where and in fact, I'll play it right now. Okay, friends, right here. This is the hardy geranium. This is Elky that I'm going to prune back. Yes, it still has a lot of blooms on it on this side. I'm going to prune back half. And then I'll see about maybe pruning back some more. Look, back there is a bunch of flowers on it, and I might want to preserve that. Let me get this rose out that I had trimmed off there. So I'm going to trim it back, not only to eliminate the seed heads, but also to make it stay a little bit shorter, more compact. This one looks like it's of a size that I could divide it, and maybe I'll do that this fall. But I love placing this around other areas in the garden because it does so well. It's a beautiful color, and it doesn't scramble too far. It stays more bushy. Okay. So I'm looking in my screen. So you have this little screen that shows me what's in the view of this camera that's on my head. It's kind of fun. Anyways, let me set this down in a place that'll be safe. And my whole intent is to be able to show you. Now, there's other plants in here like this strawberry. I probably should have grabbed my gloves, but this strawberry does not need to be in here. I'll pull it out. And here's a weed. Pull it out. This is probably, I got to look at my video, an iris that I want to move. But for now, I'm not going to worry about it. But see, I've gotten down here to the base of my plant. Let me check if I'm in the camera. Yeah. I'm in the viewfinder. Anyways, over here, right here, you can see there's already a piece way over here too, which I will get in there, and I'm going to cut this down to about 4 inches. This will all go into the compost. And yeah, it's kind of sad when it's got some blooms on it, but this will just help this plant to stay bushy and bloom shorter, cuts off the seed head so you get more bloom. And then I can leave this back here if I want. I can leave just a little bit of it for the fun of having those blooms along there. Anything that's flopping to the ground, I will just cut back because I'm not enjoying those blooms anyways. So, yeah, see how short this one is? Look at this, is way over here. Now this would be a perfect piece to come in with a shovel, and I would just slice right down here, dig up this part, and transplant it somewhere else. And that would be an easy way to get more of this hardy geranium. Again, this one is called Elky. And yeah, I hope that one also wasn't too jiggly. But When you give them a severe cutback like this, it can keep them, like I said, more compact. And you can also see where you could divide off one, that little piece I was showing you. I am going to go out with a shovel and chop that root out of there, bring it in, pot it up, and I'll have an extra elky. And yeah, so doing this with Roseanne especially, because it can really scramble. And if you don't mind, that's fine. I have the one in front that I want to scramble, but the others I want to keep more mounded and shorter. And it'll take a couple weeks for them to revive and flush back out with leaves and flowers, but it will do that and be beautiful. In the interim, I just have to wait. 8, and maybe this is the beauty of it. Every 3 to 5 years, divide your plants. I have a whole video. It's kind of old and it might be not that great, but on dividing your hardy geraniums. And like I showed you where I was going to divide off the elky, sometimes I don't dig up the whole plant. I just chop through the root mass in the ground, pop up half of it out of the ground, fill the hole back up. The other half is left undisturbed and continues on. And the other one I will pot up or replace somewhere in the garden. If I did it this time of year, being this is the end of the first week of July, then I would put it in a pot in the shade and keep it in a shady spot so that the heat and the sunlight wouldn't, it needs to get going again so it wouldn't harm it. If I did it in the fall when the temperatures have cooled off, I could put it wherever I wanted to, in the garden, in place, in the ground, and it would be great. But dividing keeps the plants healthy, keeps them more compact, and you just get more for free, which is one thing I love about these perennials that you can divide. 9, make sure you pair them with other cottage flowers. Cottage garden favorites like your daisies, your roses, delphiniums, lavender, all across the board. Echinacea. I have a video on, I think it's 18 flowers, long blooming perennials, and I have others. The ones you can divide or seed start in July, seed start in June. I have all of those and I will link them below. And then you can look at what I did last July and things you can do in your garden. You don't have to wait until a particular time. Like I just did, a seeds you could start, perennials you can start in June. You could also start many of those in July. It doesn't have to be June. And that's because these perennials, if they're hardy in your zone, they will sprout, start to get a little bit bigger, and then you could put them out in the garden in the fall. They will overwinter for you, and then next spring they'll just start growing like gangbusters. But you got to early start by starting them now. And what is easier about germinating them now is because the temperatures are warmer outside, and I would start them if I didn't have a greenhouse in the shady area. Maybe it's light shade under a tree or whatever, and you can have your trays of pots there and just make sure that you keep them moist but not wet. And the germination, you will be surprised at what great germination you get at this time of year because it's all warm and you don't have to be indoors. You're getting them out of light they need. They're getting the warmth they need with nothing extra. So 10, expect some self-seeding from some varieties. Even my was supposedly sterile hybrids like Roseanne, I found seedlings around it. Now know that with those type of hybrids, the seedlings usually do not have the same traits as the parent, the desirable traits. They will be just, whatever, a plant or of that variety, like a hardy geranium, but it could have cross-pollinated with the others, so you don't know what you're going to get. If you want to let them grow and see what they do, fine. Mine come up in areas that I don't want them. So I will dig them up and usually compost them or whatever. But if you let them get started, they can be a little bit hard to eradicate because they travel by underground rhizomes. And yeah, if you don't get every bit of it, it'll keep coming back. Now I have Johnson's Blue. It was supposed to be a sterile hybrid and it reseeded like crazy. I started just cutting that one off very early just so I wouldn't get the seeds because it was just becoming aggravating. It was coming up everywhere. So just be aware of that. Keep on top of it. Keep on top of deadheading and you won't have that issue. And maybe it isn't an issue for you and you would love it. So go with that. 11, be prepared to enjoy them for a long, long time. That's the beauty of hardy geraniums. They are so low maintenance and they just perform. So they are so little work for so much beauty. And if you pick the right varieties that bloom a long, long time for you, then you will have enjoyment with very little effort. Now, when I go and I deadhead, like if I have a plant that's most of it's gone to seed, there's got a few blooms on it, I take my hedge trimmers and I'll just whack off like the top 2 inches, and I'll share a video of that. It makes quick work of it, and pretty soon you'll have all new blooms covering that plant, if it is a very reliable re-bloomer. So, depending on the variety of hardy geranium you choose, you could fill in a front border that suppresses weeds. You can let one scramble through other plants, like I have done with Orion in my secret cottage garden, or Roseanne in the front on the obelisk with the white rose. I've also kept them shorter. Elkie has stayed shorter. Tiny Monster, that one can just take off and grow forever. But I do prune it back with my weed eater along the road, and it just does fine. I keep things as easy as possible. So I hope you enjoyed this little blurb on growing hardy geraniums, and do give them a try. Do your own research on which ones would do best in your conditions. As far as I can tell, I've never had any pest problems with them. The gophers so far have completely left them alone. And so, yeah, just a tough, hardy, easygoing plant that you certainly could enjoy for years and years. So, also, if you've ever seen Blue Cloud hardy geranium, that is one I'm looking for. And I saw it on an British garden show, fell in love with it, but I have not seen it anywhere. So, let me know. All right, I will see you in my next video, where hopefully I will get my roses video done for you. So, see you then.